Predator Empire had conquered 2,000 worlds without ever losing a hunt. Entire civilizations vanished beneath sleek black warships, leaving only silent ruins and triumphant trophies. Supreme Predator considered fear the universe's currency. Every campaign began with a warning, continued through relentless pursuit, and ended with extinction. When long-range probes reached Earth, analysts expected another forgettable victory. Human broadcasts confused them. One channel showed enormous athletes crashing together while roaring crowds celebrated. Another blasted electric guitars beneath explosions.
Dirty bang.
An ancient action film featured a muscular hero promising, "I'll be back." Junior officers logged the recordings as ceremonial battle rites. Veterans nodded, impressed. Laughed, primitive mammals adore noise. Their confidence will collapse before sunrise.
Well, that's
His commanders
not a bear.
answered with clicking mandibles and satisfied growls. Nobody questioned the prediction because nobody remembered defeat. Earth received the standard ultimatum anyway. One sentence flashed across every satellite, television, phone, and emergency frequency. Hide. For exactly 12 seconds, panic spread. Then someone in Nebraska uploaded a joke claiming the message was an aggressive advertisement for camping equipment. A radio host blamed hackers. Teenagers remixed the warning into dance music.
Failure.
Sports commentators interrupted halftime long enough to shrug before returning to football highlights. Across diners, garages, and crowded highways, Americans argued about barbecue, gasoline prices, and whether the mysterious transmission looked fake. Humanity's refusal to react logically baffled the alien observers more than any weapon ever could. The invasion fleet descended through crimson evening clouds above Montana because orbital scans reported sparse defenses, endless forests, and low strategic value. Predator planners imagined frightened civilians scattering into predictable hiding places. Instead, they found pickup trucks parked beside weathered cabins, smoke curling from chimneys, and hunters comparing fishing stories around campfires. Earl Dawson, a gray-bearded widower with a faded Marine tattoo, adjusted his old camouflage cap and poured another cup of coffee.
Good to
His
see you,
closest
Earl.
friend,
Likewise,
Maria,
Colonel.
managed the local
The elk are
wildlife
further
station and
north.
carried enough sarcasm to
If you
embarrass
say so.
politicians. Beside them
We are
sat
exactly
16-year-old
where
Ben
we need
Harper,
to be.
who treated every strange rumor like the beginning of an adventure instead of a disaster. None of them believed aliens existed. They certainly never expected visitors to arrive before dessert. High above, cloaked Predator scouts drifted between towering pines, scanning heat signatures with flawless precision. Their equipment cataloged heartbeats, blood chemistry, bone density, and probable escape routes. It completely ignored one inconvenient variable. Earl sneezed, looked toward rustling
We
bushes,
will track
and
them
muttered
to
that
the
the
ends
biggest
of the
elk in history was
galaxy.
hiding nearby.
But
Without
sire,
urgency,
the Senate
he
will
raised
not
his weathered
tolerate
hunting
this.
rifle and squeezed the trigger. The invisible scout crashed through branches with a metallic scream, blue blood splashing moss and shattered bark.
Let the
Cloaking
invasion
fields fizzled
begin.
into smoking sparks, revealing armored limbs where antlers should have been. Earl blinked once. Ben dropped his sandwich. Maria stared for 3 silent seconds before saying, "Well, that's definitely protected wildlife." Inside the orbiting flagship, alarms erupted. Officers replayed the impossible footage repeatedly. Their camouflage had defeated quantum sensors across dozens of star systems. Yet a middle-aged hunter had eliminated an elite scout through instinct, luck, and astonishing
Look at
indifference.
this!
Analysts
They're getting
debated
really
hidden
creative
technology.
with these halftime
Others suspected
shows.
sabotage. Nobody considered that humans sometimes solved impossible problems simply by acting before overthinking. More scouts landed. More accidents followed. One predator stepped onto an abandoned bear trap. Another collided with an old logging cable stretched across a forgotten trail. A third narrowly escaped after wandering into an active beehive and discovering Earth insects respected neither rank nor
There
advanced
ain't
armor.
nothing quite like
Every
a
embarrassing
quiet morning
incident
in these
spread
woods.
anxious whispers through the fleet. Fear spread unevenly.
Right, and I suppose
Younger
that
predator
grizzly
officers
just
masked
tucked
it with louder
himself in.
boasts, insisting the scout had suffered
We
equipment
both know
failure.
that's not how this
Older
works,
veterans studied
Earl.
every
I'm
recording
just
frame by
saying, it was
frame,
acting
noticing
awful
details
strange,
that
Ranger.
unsettled them. The
Earl!
human who fired never displayed
Maria!
triumph, panic, or calculated aggression.
Maria!
He had reacted with the
You
casual
guys need
rhythm
to
of
look at
someone
this
solving an
right now.
ordinary inconvenience.
It is
Their
broadcast on every
psychological
channel.
models contained no category for enemies who could destroy an invisible assassin before finishing afternoon coffee. Meanwhile, the small Montana town settled into restless curiosity. Sheriff's deputies roped off the crash site, only to discover curious neighbors arriving with folding chairs, coolers, and homemade pie. Someone suggested calling the military. Someone else insisted the object belonged to an experimental movie production. Children speculated about little green men until Maria firmly reminded them the corpse was nearly 8 feet tall and looked grumpier than any extraterrestrial in cartoons. Even tension dissolved into uneasy laughter because humor felt easier than
Be
terror.
careful, we don't know if there
Before
are more.
midnight, black helicopters finally thundered overhead. Federal agents established checkpoints, confiscated phones, and politely requested silence. Their professionalism lasted exactly 6 minutes. Ben secretly photographed the blue blood-soaking pine needles, uploaded the image through weak cellular service, and accidentally ignited the internet. Thousands declared the picture fake. Thousands more argued passionately that the government had hidden aliens since the 1980s. Memes faster than official denials. One viral caption read, "When deer season fights back." Deep inside the flagship, intelligence specialists monitored humanity's digital reaction with mounting disbelief. Instead of coordinated evacuation, they found arguments about image filters, movie references, conspiracy podcasts, and whether the fallen creature resembled an angry lobster. Watched the endless flood of jokes without understanding why ridicule seemed stronger than fear. For the first time during his long career, the opening move of a hunt had slipped beyond his control. He quietly ordered every warrior to treat humans as unpredictable prey, never realizing that the change came far too late. Tomorrow would rewrite every rule the Empire. Meanwhile, dawn spilled across Montana, painting the pine forests with cold ribbons of gold, while anxious helicopters carved circles through the crisp morning sky. Earl Dawson stood outside his weathered cabin, staring at the strange blue blood still staining the moss where yesterday's impossible visitor had fallen. Maria approached carrying fresh coffee, silently handing him a steaming mug before glancing toward the clearing. Ben Harper sprinted across the yard, nearly slipping on damp grass as he waved his phone triumphantly above his head. "We're everywhere," Ben said between breaths. "Half the internet says you're the greatest hunter alive. The other half says the government hired you to promote some secret movie." Earl snorted. "I'd rather shoot another alien than read the comments." Before anyone laughed, the distant rumble of engines rolled through the valley. Armored military trucks emerged from the winding highway, followed by engineering vehicles, communication trailers, and black helicopters descending with mechanical precision. Soldiers spread through the town, establishing checkpoints and scanning every inch of woodland with sophisticated equipment that looked strangely helpless beside old hunting rifles hanging from cabin walls. The lead vehicle stopped beside Earl's porch. Colonel Jack stepped out without ceremony. He wore standard combat fatigues beneath a battered leather jacket, yet the faded cowboy hat shading his face made him appear more rancher than officer. His calm blue eyes missed nothing, though they carried the tired patience of someone who had survived enough wars to distrust dramatic speeches. He extended his hand toward Earl. "So," said evenly, "you're the man who accidentally started humanity's first interstellar incident." Earl shook his hand. "I honestly thought it was an ugly elk." "I believe you." Maria folded her arms. "That's the part you're accepting without questions." "I've served long enough," replied. "Reality rarely asks permission before becoming ridiculous." The remark earned the first genuine smile anyone had managed since the invasion began. Inside a temporary command center assembled beside the sheriff's office, Satellite imagery illuminated enormous displays. Hundreds of crimson markers glowed across North America. Similar reports poured in from Europe, Asia, Australia, and South America. Alien landing craft had appeared worldwide during the night, yet almost every encounter ended with confusion instead of conquest. One predator scout vanished after wandering into a flooded swamp filled with aggressive alligators. Another accidentally triggered an abandoned mining explosion. A third attempted to study a rodeo and fled after mistaking charging bulls for military assault beasts. Military analysts struggled to classify the reports without laughing. Didn't laugh. He studied every incident carefully, searching for patterns hidden beneath absurdity. The aliens possessed overwhelming technology, but they relied completely upon prediction. They expected fear. They expected organized resistance. They expected logical behavior. Humanity consistently delivered none of those things. A communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we've intercepted enemy transmissions." The room fell silent. An audio specialist translated the clicks and guttural growls into English. "They're requesting updated tactical guidance," she explained. The recording played. "Warning: humans demonstrate irrational responses. One elder female attacked lieutenant with a cooking pan. Lieutenant remains unconscious. Recommend avoiding kitchens." Several officers covered their mouths. Another transmission followed. "Scout Unit 7, neutralized by unknown projectile." "What projectile?" "It's a lawn mower." Silence lasted 2 seconds before uncontrollable laughter erupted across the command center. Even couldn't suppress a grin. "They're serious," the translator whispered. "I know," answered. "That's somehow funnier." Far above Earth, aboard the Predator flagship, Supreme Commander watched increasingly disturbing battlefield recordings. Invisible warriors slipped into suburban neighborhoods only to be chased by barking dogs. Elite hunters became trapped inside automatic garage doors. Cloaked infiltrators hid beside dumpsters until sanitation trucks unknowingly compacted them with industrial force. His commanders searched desperately for sophisticated explanations. Perhaps humans possessed hidden psychic abilities. Perhaps Earth itself generated unpredictable magnetic anomalies. Perhaps unknown allies secretly protected the planet. Nobody proposed the simplest possibility. Humans were naturally chaotic. Slammed his claw against the command platform. They cannot continue defeating trained warriors through coincidence. An elderly strategist finally spoke. "Supreme Commander, if coincidence happens often enough, perhaps it stops being coincidence." The chamber fell uncomfortably quiet. Back in Montana, gathered Earl, Maria, Ben, local hunters, volunteer firefighters, park rangers, and sheriff's deputies inside the high school gymnasium. Folding chairs replaced military briefing tables. Maps covered basketball scoreboards. Coffee brewed continuously in giant silver urns because nobody functioned properly without caffeine. Addressed the room plainly. "I don't care whether you've worn a uniform. I care whether you know these mountains." Every hand rose. "They hunt using advanced sensors." Earl nodded slowly. "So we stop acting like prey." "Exactly." Maria stepped forward. "They're studying us scientifically." Ben smiled. "Then let's give them the weirdest science experiment they've ever seen." The room erupted with approving laughter. Within hours, ordinary civilians transformed into an improvised intelligence network. Hunters monitored forests. Ham radio enthusiasts relayed. Drone hobbyists launched homemade surveillance flights. Mechanics reinforced pickup trucks with improvised steel plating. Local schoolteachers organized food distribution, while volunteer veterinarians treated injured search dogs that stubbornly insisted on chasing invisible intruders. Nobody waited for perfect instructions. Everyone simply found something useful. That unexpected unity unsettled more deeply than the invasion itself. He had witnessed nations fracture under pressure. Instead, tiny communities adapted almost instinctively, as though surviving impossible situations belonged somewhere deep within humanity's oldest memories. Late that afternoon, Ben monitored online broadcasts inside the communications trailer. Social media overflowed with blurry footage, sarcastic memes, conspiracy theories, movie references, and homemade survival guides titled ridiculous things like 10 Easy Ways to Annoy Your Local Alien. Most governments begged citizens to remain calm. Citizens responded by arguing whether the invaders looked more like insects, lobsters, or angry fitness instructors. An exhausted analyst rubbed her temples. They're making jokes during an alien invasion. Ben shrugged. We joke during hurricanes too. Outside, distant gunfire echoed through the forest. Then another burst. Then silence. Moments later, two exhausted hunters emerged dragging something enormous beneath a camouflage tarp. Blue blood seeped across the dirt road. The crowd gathered instinctively. When soldiers lifted the tarp, another predator lay motionless, its polished armor crushed beneath the twisted remains of a massive pine tree. What happened? Asked. One hunter scratched his beard. We were trying to cut firewood. The colonel stared at the broken alien. The hunter looked genuinely embarrassed. It fell in the wrong direction. Slowly looked toward the darkening forest, where countless untouched trees stretched beyond sight. Somewhere among those silent shadows, invisible predators still believed they were conducting the greatest hunt in galactic history. Yet two elite warriors had already died because ordinary Americans had mistaken one for an elk and accidentally dropped a tree on another. For the first time, realized humanity's greatest weapon was not superior firepower, fearless courage, or advanced strategy. It was an almost supernatural talent for turning absolute chaos into devastating opportunity, and the invaders had only begun discovering how dangerous that talent could become. Night settled over Montana with a silence so complete that every snapping twig sounded like a warning, whispered directly into the darkness. Campfires flickered beside abandoned logging roads where volunteers, soldiers, and lifelong hunters waited together beneath towering pines. The invasion had entered its third day, yet instead of collapsing into panic, the region had become strangely determined. Every frightened conversation eventually transformed into another practical idea. Every setback inspired someone to improvise. Colonel Jack watched those transformations with growing admiration, because no military academy had ever taught the kind of resilience unfolding before him. Inside the command trailer, satellite feeds painted a startling picture. Predator forces had established secure landing zones across the globe, yet none expanded as planned. Convoys vanished after entering unfamiliar terrain. Patrols disappeared inside dense forests. Entire reconnaissance teams stopped transmitting without leaving evidence behind. The invaders still possessed overwhelming technological superiority, but their confidence had begun eroding faster than their numbers. Maria entered carrying fresh reports from volunteer observation posts. They're avoiding cabins now. Looked up. They're changing tactics. She nodded. Apparently one scout opened the wrong shed and met 6 angry mechanics. What happened? They stole half his armor before he escaped. Ben burst through the doorway moments later, unable to hide his excitement. You have to see this. He placed a recovered alien wrist computer onto the operations table. The device shimmered with shifting blue symbols before projecting a 3-dimensional battlefield map above the room. Hundreds of crimson markers represented Predator units. Smaller golden lights marked command vessels orbiting Earth. Military technicians gathered around immediately. One engineer whispered, If we can understand this interface, we might predict every enemy movement. Ben grinned. Or accidentally order them pizza. Even laughed. Let's aim slightly higher. Hours passed while specialists examined the strange technology. Every command required gestures instead of buttons, accompanied by clicking sounds beyond normal human speech. Progress seemed impossible until Earl wandered into the trailer carrying another mug of coffee. He watched frustrated scientists waving their hands through glowing symbols. Looks like my grandson trying to use a television remote. Nobody responded. Then Earl casually poked one floating icon with the wooden stir stick from his coffee. The projection instantly reorganized into readable English. Silence filled the trailer. A young physicist blinked repeatedly. You solved extraterrestrial encryption with a coffee stick. Earl shrugged. I thought it looked lonely. The discovery unlocked everything. Alien patrol routes, supply depots, communications relays, emergency extraction points. For the first time since arriving, humanity understood where the hunters planned to strike next. Far above Earth, received increasingly disturbing casualty reports. Elite trackers refused assignments within North American forests. Veterans who once hunted apex predators across toxic death worlds now requested transfers to open deserts instead. One commander finally admitted what nobody wished to acknowledge. The humans are learning. His crimson eyes narrowed. They remain technologically primitive. They adapt too quickly. Then kill them faster. We're trying. The simple answer echoed painfully through the bridge. Elsewhere aboard the flagship, junior analysts secretly monitored human internet broadcasts. They expected military planning. Instead, they found comedians impersonating alien commanders. Children sold handmade cardboard helmets labeled official predator repellent. Someone released a catchy country song called "Don't Beam Up My Pickup." The analysts became genuinely unsettled. How could a civilization laugh while facing extinction? Back on Earth, refused to waste their growing advantage. Rather than defending every town, he proposed something far more dangerous. We hunt them. Several officers exchanged uncertain glances. We're outnumbered in orbit, one protested. Pointed toward the holographic map. Not down here. Maria studied the highlighted patrol routes. They expect us to hide. Exactly. Earl smiled beneath his gray beard. My favorite kind of surprise. Before dawn, dozens of carefully selected teams disappeared into the surrounding wilderness. Hunters paired with soldiers. Rangers guided engineers. Drone operators coordinated with local teenagers who knew every abandoned trail, collapsed mine, and forgotten logging road hidden throughout the mountains. Technology met experience. Discipline met improvisation. Each strengthened the other. The first ambush unfolded beside an abandoned railway bridge. Predator scouts advanced cautiously, scanning every tree with thermal sensors. They detected no movement because every human hid beneath insulated emergency blankets coated with mud collected from nearby streams. The aliens crossed the bridge confidently. Then ancient railroad supports collapsed beneath carefully loosened bolts. Steel screamed. Wood exploded. The entire structure folded into the river below. Before surviving predators recovered, dozens of tranquilizer darts launched from concealed hunting blinds. The chemicals barely affected alien biology, yet the distraction allowed hidden marksmen to target vulnerable joints exposed by damaged armor. Within minutes, the patrol surrendered. Nobody on either side expected prisoners. The captured commander stared at with genuine confusion. Why preserve defeated enemies? Remove the aliens' weapons before answering. Because dead prisoners never answer questions. The commander slowly lowered his head. "You are unlike every species we've hunted. I hope that's becoming obvious." Interrogations revealed unsettling truths. The predator empire had conquered civilizations for centuries, collecting survivors as living trophies and destroying cultures that resisted too fiercely. Earth represented merely another expedition, another addition to an endless museum of conquered worlds. Ben listened quietly from the corner until the alien finished speaking. "So we're just entertainment." The prisoner hesitated. "Word." That single word echoed through the room. Across the globe, similar victories. Australian ranchers outmaneuvered cloaked hunters using sheepdogs. Scandinavian skiers outran hover patrols through frozen valleys. Japanese robotics clubs repurposed captured drones into reconnaissance scouts. Cajun fishermen lured amphibious invaders into alligator-infested swamps before quietly collecting abandoned equipment. No nation waited for another to save it. Humanity solved problems the only way it knew. Together, abandoned caution entirely. Furious beyond restraint, he ordered overwhelming retaliation. Massive descended simultaneously toward every region showing organized resistance. The sky darkened beneath descending engines, their thunder shaking forests and towns alike. Warning sirens wailed across Montana. Families hurried underground. Volunteers loaded ammunition. Children carried supplies instead of toys. Climbed a rocky overlook overlooking the valley where countless lights glowed beneath descending enemy craft. Earl joined him without speaking. Maria arrived moments later carrying binoculars. Ben stood beside them, unusually quiet. Hundreds of predator vessels pierced the clouds. "This is the real invasion," Maria whispered. Nodded slowly. "They've stopped underestimating us." Earl chambered another round into his weathered rifle. "Took them long enough." Suddenly, every recovered alien computer inside the command center activated simultaneously. Bright crimson symbols flooded each display before automatically translating into perfect English. One message appeared on every screen across every captured device. "Attention humans. The hunt is over. Now the extermination begins." As the final word flashed across the monitors, every descending warship opened its armored belly, revealing ranks of towering predator warriors unlike anything humanity had yet encountered. These were not scouts or infiltrators, but the Empire's legendary execution legions, bred for conquest rather than pursuit. Even felt the weight of what approached. Humanity had won the opening rounds through courage, luck, and relentless improvisation, but dawn would demand something entirely different. For the first time since the invasion began, survival itself no longer seemed guaranteed. The first explosions shattered the morning before sunrise fully reached the mountains. Brilliant emerald bolts streaked across the valley, splintering granite cliffs and igniting towering pines, yet the people of Montana did not scatter in blind terror. They moved with practiced purpose. Families disappeared into reinforced shelters. Volunteer firefighters extinguished spreading flames before they became infernos. Hunters slipped silently into familiar forests, while soldiers established defensive positions that blended naturally with the rugged landscape. The predator empire had returned expecting panic. Instead, it encountered disciplined determination sharpened by 3 relentless days of adaptation. Colonel Jack watched the descending execution legions through binoculars, counting formations instead of fearing them. Thousands of armored warriors emerged from immense landing craft, each carrying weapons capable of reducing armored vehicles to molten wreckage. Their synchronized advance looked unstoppable until Earl Dawson quietly unfolded a weathered paper map beside him. "They'll follow the wide valleys," Earl said. "Why?" "They think like machines." Maria smiled faintly. "And valleys become traps." Nodded once. Let's introduce them to American geography. Across the mountains, hidden volunteers activated carefully prepared obstacles. Logging crews released stacks of cut timber that thundered downhill with unstoppable force. Engineers detonated abandoned rock faces, burying armored columns beneath avalanches of stone. Drone hobbyists swarmed overhead with modified racing drones carrying smoke canisters instead of explosives, blinding sophisticated targeting systems with thick gray clouds that confused thermal scanners and optical sensors alike. Predator commanders barked furious orders as battlefield formations dissolved into disorder. Advanced technology struggled against landscapes that seemed determined to fight alongside humanity. Every narrow canyon concealed another surprise. Every hid unseen defenders. Every apparent retreat lured impatient warriors deeper into unfamiliar wilderness, where local knowledge outweighed superior firepower. Ben Harper coordinated civilian drone pilots from the communications trailer, his fingers flying across improvised control panels assembled from laptops, gaming equipment, and salvaged alien electronics. Video feeds streamed across dozens of screens simultaneously. Group 3 shift east. Group 7 mark heat signatures. Don't chase them. One teenage pilot answered, "They're chasing me." Ben grinned. "Perfect, keep annoying them." The drones darted unpredictably between trees, forcing heavily armored predators to waste devastating weapons against machines worth less than a single alien rifle component. Every expensive blast destroyed inexpensive equipment while revealing hidden enemy positions to subservers. Inside the flagship orbiting above Earth, Supreme Commander watched the offensive unravel with mounting disbelief. His execution legions had crushed empires spanning entire sectors of the galaxy, yet ordinary civilians repeatedly disrupted flawless battle plans using creativity no military doctrine could predict. One frustrated general finally spoke. "They refused to fight correctly." Slammed both fists onto the command platform. "Correct warfare is determined by victory." The general lowered his gaze. "Then perhaps humanity defines it differently." On the battlefield, Earl's hunting group tracked isolated execution warriors through dense forests with astonishing patience. They avoided direct confrontation, instead steering their pursuers toward abandoned logging camps where rusting machinery, unstable fuel tanks, and forgotten equipment became unexpected allies. One predator kicked aside an old generator. Maria whispered, "Bad idea." Seconds later, a carefully hidden ignition wire triggered cascading explosions that engulfed the camp in roaring fire. The warrior stumbled outward, dazed but alive, only to find Earl calmly waiting behind a fallen cedar. "You folks really ought to watch where you're walking." His rifle cracked once. The enormous alien collapsed. Elsewhere led a daring assault against a mobile command carrier advancing toward the valley. Conventional missiles barely scratched its reinforced hull, forcing him to improvise. Spotting an abandoned freight train resting on elevated tracks, he ordered engineers to disengage every brake simultaneously. Steel groaned. Massive railcars accelerated downhill. The alien commander noticed too late. The train smashed into the command carrier with earth-shaking force, throwing armored vehicles across the valley, while ammunition stores erupted into blinding chains of explosions. Human defenders cheered as smoke climbed thousands of feet into the morning sky. The victory transformed more than morale. Recovered alien communication systems suddenly flooded with frantic transmissions, revealing widespread collapse across the invasion front. Australian defenders had seized too. Norwegian mountaineers trapped entire battalions inside frozen passes. Texas ranchers somehow captured heavy plasma artillery using cattle stampedes that analysts refused to believe, until multiple recordings confirmed the impossible. Humanity wasn't merely surviving anymore. It was winning. abandoned orbital command entirely. If fear no longer obeyed his empire, he would restore it personally. His flagship descended through thunderclouds, casting a shadow across the valley larger than the town itself. The immense vessel landed with overwhelming power, flattening trees beneath its massive stabilizers. Its central ramp lowered slowly. Silence spread across both armies. From the darkness emerged, nearly 10 feet tall, wrapped in obsidian armor etched with trophies from conquered civilizations. The supreme predator carried an energy spear whose glowing edge shimmered like captured lightning. His face revealed centuries of victories earned through ruthless precision. He pointed the spear directly toward. "You command these humans." "I do." "Then face me." Removed his cowboy hat, handed it calmly to Ben, and stepped forward without hesitation. He carried only his battered rifle, a combat knife, and the quiet confidence that had inspired everyone around him since the invasion began. The valley held its breath. Attacked first, moving with terrifying speed despite his immense size. The energy spear slashed downward, carving molten trenches through solid earth. Rolled aside, disappearing behind shattered boulders before returning precise rifle fire that ricocheted harmlessly from alien armor but forced the commander to adjust his stance. The duel became a contest between overwhelming strength and relentless ingenuity. Never challenged power directly. He exploited loose gravel, broken terrain, drifting smoke, and every distraction surrounding the battlefield. Each near miss drew farther from stable ground until the furious commander unknowingly reached the edge of an abandoned mining shaft concealed beneath weathered planks and scattered brush. Smiled. "You spent days hunting us." Lunged. The ground vanished beneath him. Ancient timber collapsed with deafening cracks as the colossal predator plunged into darkness, his furious roar echoing through forgotten tunnels deep beneath the mountain. For one breathtaking heartbeat, absolute silence followed. Then every recovered alien communicator across the battlefield displayed the same urgent command from the flagship's emergency network. "Supreme Commander missing. All UNITS retreat immediately."